under new business on this agenda. As a matter of fairness, you're asked to limit your questions to no more than one and your remarks to no longer than 3 minutes. If you're here representing a group, please identify yourself, the group, and your position in the group. If you're here as an individual, please give us your name and address. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Superintendent's report?
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like my superintendent's report to be this evening a report on our technology status in the district. So if you would indulge me. One of the things that the board asked me to work on at the end of the summer and the beginning of this year is what was going on as far as technology in our district. Our focus, and understandably so for the last 2 or 3 years, if not more, has been on the Common Core standards, and it's been on PARC, and it's been on the new evaluation system. What we haven't done is we haven't specifically said from a district standpoint, this is what we want technology to look like and to be like in our district. And that makes sense, and I think a lot of districts were like that too, but you hear about districts doing different things. So what we wanted to do was to get a handle, and I certainly did as a fairly new superintendent here in my 2nd year, about what's going on in Mahwah. So to do that, we started to do some data collection. We surveyed about 312 certificated staff members and 18 administrators, and we did that through SurveyMonkey. We developed a hardware and software list, so we have a list of all of our devices in every room and all of the software that's being used across the district. We sent some administrators and supervisors and principals and teachers and media specialists to some conferences, technology conferences out there, so we could get a little bit of a bigger picture. And then we also sent some central office staff to some technology conferences. And we held a number of different administrative discussions. What we realized very, very quickly is, although there hasn't been a direct vision about what technology should look like or be like in our district, our teachers, our faculty are doing amazing things with technology. And they're doing it not because of guidance and vision from their administrators, but because that's what they want to do. And we knew that based on the software that they're using and the hardware that's in place. The other reason we knew that is that I meet with the Student Administrative Council 3 or 4 times a year. It's made up of about 20 or so students from the high school. And when you talk to them about technology, they don't feel like they aren't prepared because they're using it in a number of different ways. So I did want to start off with that. When we took a look at the summary of the faculty technology survey, the board has a fairly extensive report in front of them, which is pretty detailed. What I wanted to do for this presentation is just kind of summarize that for you. There is no doubt that technology is in the classroom, but it's being used through whole class instruction. So a teacher determines what they want to do, and they use the systems that we have in place, and they do a whole class instruction. Teachers on the whole, our teachers, feel comfortable using technology in the classroom. Again, a lot of that based on their own motivation and insight. But the request was definitely felt and heard and read about wanting more technology, wanting more hardware, wanting more software. As you know, you can't just choose one software for one grade level. We have 12. Pre-K, we have 13 grade levels. Different software is applicable to different classes. But the biggest cry was increased professional development with new technology. Professionally develop us, teach us, let us know what we can do to infuse this technology. When we surveyed the administrators, they too feel comfortable using the technology that they have, but they also requested, without a doubt, increased professional development. Let's work with our faculty and decide how we want to infuse this into the classroom. We noticed that when we looked at hardware and we looked at software, it varies in content areas. But what we wanted to do, and the administrator said this, is please make it uniform. What we've been doing through our own district technology budget, as well as the Education Foundation, which has been all sorts of gracious to us over the years, is putting technology into classrooms based on teacher requests, which have been excellent. But what you find when you do that is it doesn't become uniform. Everybody doesn't have the same thing. So what came across with these surveys was, you know what, let's see what we can do as we move forward to make that uniform. We want to do that because everybody's heard about these 21st century skills. If you haven't, they're a basic set of skills that we want our kids to be able to learn so that they're ready for college and ready for career. I bring this up because we're doing this already. We have technology benchmarks. We are infusing technology. But when you look at how 21st century skills breaks out, the purple section, which is difficult to read on this slide, is all about information and it's all about technology. And just looking at the colors, it's a big piece of what our kids need to have. So making it uniform and professionally developing our staff made a lot of sense. So we developed an internal look as to where we were, but what we also wanted to do was go outside. Because a lot of what we hear is, other districts are doing this, why aren't we? The district next door, or my friend's child is doing something. So we surveyed the Bergen County school districts and we asked them 3 questions. We wanted to know if teachers had an individual technology device for use both at home and school on their own. We wanted to know if they did, how far before a district went to one-to-one did they have this device, which means what kind of professional development did they have to be able to infuse it. And the third was which districts are currently in a one-to-one or a BYOD, bring your own device scenario. And here are the results. We had 50 respondents out of 80. 34 provided out of 50, 68%, provided their teachers with a laptop or a tablet at least 3 months before students receive something, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. 15 out of the 34, or 44%, are currently in a one-to-one environment, so a little less than half. It's not everybody. The third was 4 out of the 34 are doing that this year. And they aren't doing it on a K-12 scenario, they're doing it in certain grade levels little by little, which also makes sense. And 5 out of 34 said that they're moving toward that for next year and in next year's budget. So I wanted to get an idea of what the big picture was around, and these are the results we received. So what did we do? We gathered those teacher survey results, more professional development, try to make those hardware things uniform. We did administrator survey results, which basically said the same thing, separate and apart, which is interesting, which means we're all on the same page. We gathered Bergen County district information, and we also did some research on one-to-one and what it looks like and what you should do to prepare for that. So with all that information, we wanted to make sure we did what was right for Mahwah and what was right on those results. And we came up with 3 recommendations. The first is a teacher laptop pilot, and I'll talk about all these in detail. The second was open up a bring your own device or a BYOD environment to all of our pre-K to 12 teachers. Right now, teachers all have devices, most of them do, at least a cell phone. And they also have a tablet or a laptop. Things are a little bit different in the technology world than they were 10 years ago. But our teachers don't have the ability to be able to get onto a Wi-Fi environment here. So we wanted to open that up. And we also wanted to do a class laptop pilot. And the class we've chosen is design and research, and we'll talk about that. So let's talk about the first one. For those of you that haven't noticed, Mr. Miller's in the audience. And one of the reasons that he is after much discussion with administrators, what we wanted to do was to pilot a laptop initiative at the middle school. We wanted to offer 10 to 15 teachers at the middle school with a laptop computer, which we do have one of those examples up here. And with that, we wanted to provide those teachers with the professional development that they would need should we go to a one-to-one scenario in the middle school. In doing this, we wanted there to be a seamless integration, and it's a little bit different. You know, you want technology in the classroom, but if you give the teachers a device, then they have it with them, they can be trained on it, and with that make a difference in moving forward. We want to support creativeness. We have that already. We want to see if having this device makes a difference. And we want to incorporate programs that we have in district, Office 365. A lot of people talk about Google Apps and the Google platform. We are using a lot of that at the high school. But Office 365 is something that we have in our district, which isn't even close to being utilized. Here with us tonight is our supervisor of technology as well. And Office 365 allows our students, and we're going to give us a shot at the middle school, to have email addresses so our teachers can communicate through a K-12 email address just like the teachers have. It allows for those cloud-based services, upload things to the cloud and be able to share. It also promotes a great deal of collaboration. When you read about technology, it's not just having the device, which is just a tool like a textbook. It's being able to use that device, but to use it with kids and with the teachers back and forth and save it so that everyone can see it. Office 365 allows for 5 devices to be set up on each account. So that means a teacher can have an account here, could have an account at home, could have the account on their phone. Brian, I know that you met with your staff today.
Yeah, well, thank you. We did. Hi, everybody. Thanks. Sorry, I'm a little wobbly tonight. Broke my foot. But we did meet with the staff today. We had a faculty meeting today, and I had them do a little bit of research on OneNote and Office 365. And so many were salivating after the meeting that they said, where do we sign up? Which was really neat to hear, because they truly believe that having a laptop and using Office 365 and OneNote for Education will allow for that collaboration and communication and back and forth information. So if you ever have a child that was working on a project with another child on the other side of town, you know, could you imagine having to drive and finish that poster? We've all been there. Well, you can do a lot of this in OneNote and in Office 365 where kids can collaborate together. Send that to the teacher can give that feedback right there, and then the child can even collaborate again in their own cloud space. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. Teachers around Pearl Ridge were very excited about the possibility of taking Mahwah into the future and using this cloud-based service. So thanks for that.
And I want to thank you for your cheerleading of all of this, because you know as well as I do, it really does take a team to come together. And although we have Office 365 in the district, what we didn't want to do is say, okay, everyone, as of September 1st, this is how everyone is going to operate. That really isn't thoughtful. And although we could do it, we don't know if we necessarily want to do it or if it will work. So it makes sense, or it did for us, to start in a very small space so that we can utilize the year to determine whether or not it's successful and have some data that will work with that. So thank you, Brian. Let's talk about the BYOD environment. Our teachers all don't have the opportunity to hook up to our Wi-Fi network. We want to offer them the opportunity to do that with up to 2 devices. So that would probably be their cell phone and perhaps their tablet or their computer. We know that there are going to be some ups and downs in doing that when you open it up to 300 or 400 people, and we're aware of that. We won't be initiating that until the beginning of April. Our tech staff is very busy dealing with Park right now, so we don't want to remove them from that scenario. We also know that even though Carlos and his team has put together really extensive directions, screenshots, step-by-step with how to do it, that there may be some issues along the way. So we're going to designate days at each of our schools where the tech staff will be available to help teachers go ahead and do that. And that information will be coming out in April. So we're going to give that a shot. Go back one, Chris, for 1 second. I'll tell you one of the reasons that we want to do that. We want to see whether or not teachers are more comfortable using their own device, or is it better with having a district-issued device? We can kind of run 2 pseudo-pilots at the same time to see, you know, I've got a computer at home, I've got everything on it. If it were up to me, I'd rather just carry it with me and do my thing, as opposed to having but a 3rd laptop at home, because I have a desktop, I have a laptop, I have a tablet, and probably many of us do. We'll just be able to determine with opening this up, because part of the professional development is not just for the 10 to 15 teachers, but it's for our district teachers as a whole. So we're going to do that at the same time. The 3rd piece of the recommendation is moving to doing the STEM class. And the STEM class is a brand new class. Angela Schmaltz is in the back row. Say hello to Angela. She is the teacher of the new elective course at the high school called Design and Research. It already has a subscription of 24 students. We anticipate a waiting list coming up soon, which is pretty amazing. STEM instruction, as you know, is the science, technology, engineering, and math. And the instruction has a lot to do with problem and project and design-based tasks. So what we want to do is we want to issue the 24 students, or perhaps 25, I don't know what our cap is, Angela, do you know?
I believe it's 24.
Okay, so we want to issue our 24 students a laptop computer along with Angela. In doing so, Angela will receive, you can go to the next slide, I think, Christine, some professional development prior to the start of this course in September. That's that third bullet, the International Society for Technology and Education, where she will have that device with her. And she's going to learn how to incorporate that not only herself with what the device can do, but what her kids will be able to do with that computer in class. We're looking at a couple of different devices now, and I think that's the next slide. One of them is this HP ZBook. For those of you that don't know anything about STEM courses or the ZBook, in order to run a computer in a STEM course, it needs to be a fairly powerful device. It can't be your $299 piece of equipment, because kids are doing a lot of planning, and part of that has to do with AutoCAD, which is a program that needs a good machine in order to be able to carry it. This is one of them that we're looking at. Carlos is also researching a touchscreen for us, and the reason for that is that when you do drawings and that kind of thing, being able to touch the screen and scale your drawings and work within a program could really benefit our kids. So threefold, we're starting off with the middle school with some teachers. We're going to open up an environment is the recommendation, and the third thing we want to do is be able to put this in a classroom and allow next year, and work with Angela and her kids to determine whether or not this is successful, and do we want to begin to open up a one-to-one to more kids. Is that another high school class? I don't know. Is that going to be a middle school grade level or a couple of grade levels? I don't know. I think what we need to do is to see what happens when we add more professional development. We add a small set of devices in different places, so that I can come back to you and say, you know, that laptop pilot, you know, in the STEM class, it just didn't work out. The kids really didn't like the computer, they were confused, they were better off being in a lab. And I'm hoping that Angela will say, don't do this, it's not worth it. I doubt it, but perhaps you will, because there's a learning curve that's going to take place with putting a device in front of kids. And the other thing that comes out too is that we think just because the kids have the device, they need to use the device every day. And Angela needs to determine as the instructor when that device should be used and at what point. And I think that that takes time to come out, and allowing next year for these three things to play all together, I think will allow us to have a plan moving forward on a larger scale. It is our recommendation that we don't do that immediately, because we do want it to be a thoughtful inclusion of technology. Any questions?
What's the device for the pilot in district?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Because the same thing, it's a ZBook, and
Okay.
part of the reason that it is, great question, and I should have said that, is the uniformity that our teachers and our administrators brought up in the survey questions about, please give us all the same device so we don't have different things going on.
And in terms of the device, recognizing it's just a pilot, so educational software that we presently use is all compatible from a Windows perspective? Okay.
Yeah, all of the software that we currently use and any future software will be compatible with this platform.
Cool. It's a slip of a machine.
It is a slip of the machine. I'm guessing it's probably not cheap, so on the occasion that somebody drops one or breaks one, are they, is their insurance?
We're going to talk about that. I met with representatives of the MEA yesterday, just to kind of say this is what we're laying out, because I want to communicate and make sure everybody's on the same page. They asked that question too. We're not there yet. We got to this point, we're going to talk about what the insurance would be and what it should be. What I can tell you is that we're going to have some extra devices in play. We're not just going to order just 24 or 25 for Angela's, and we're not just going to order 10 or 15 in Brian's. We'll have some extra in play as well. But we'll have to talk about that, Carlos. I don't know how that'll work. There are a number of different programs out there. I've been in districts that have been in a one-to-one scenario, and it's usually a fairly minimal price for insurance on this.
And on something like this, knowing, you know, the pace that technology advances, what's the useful life on something like this?
Be 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
The way we're configuring the platform would allow for enough growth, enough time. With the device, it's not something like we're buying something for residential use, and next year it's outdated. It's a corporate type of a laptop, so they're thinking about the future use of that. It's just not today.
So these devices will be purchased and not leased then? Or have you not made a decision on that yet?
We have not made a decision
We
as
have,
of as
we're
of yet
leaning
with
toward
that.
purchasing. That tends to be what we do as far as technology in the district is concerned. The deal with lease agreements are you really make a better deal when you're buying in bulk. So if we were going to buy 200 computers, then we're more likely to, not more likely, we would consider, I think, a lease agreement, but at this point, purchasing. John?
And the pilot program, that's going to be the entire school year?
The pilot program for Angela's class?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, as will the devices that Brian's teachers will get as well. It'll be the whole year, and what I'll do next year is do like a quarterly report for you. So every few months or so, I'm going to let you know how we're doing from both the class and the teacher perspective.
Who does the professional training, and once the devices are in place, do we have the tech support to support when things go wrong?
Let's answer the first. And the answer to the second question first is yes, we do. We're really adding, if you think about it, 25 plus 15, we're looking at 40 additional devices. So I think, Carlos, am I out of line in saying that the 40 we should be able to comfortably do? As far as the professional development is concerned, I'm going to work with Christine on that. We tend to get outside people to come in and to do that for us. The Office 365, perhaps we can professionally develop groups on that with the knowledge that we have, as Brian already started in doing that somewhat with webinars and things that are out there. But we would hire companies and people. Am I out of line in that?
All right, there's a lot of different ways to go. New Jersey Educational Computing Conference is running for the first time a summer ed camp that we're looking into. We're a member district, so it would be open to all of our staff. Information about that is forthcoming. Mr. Miller found an organization that offers professional development and educational computing as well. It's a matter of seeing what they have, how does it meet our needs. But there are, I think, no short number of options out there. It's just
What we wanted to
finding
do was just set out the recommendation first and then work on the professional development plan moving forward, and we have time.
Does HP provide anyone?
Professional development, I don't know if, I know they do, certainly their device. Whether or not they offer educational professional development, I don't know, but that's a great idea, Suzanne.
Microsoft does a lot.
Microsoft,
Yeah.
HP, professional development that they have would be device-centric. It's not in curriculum.
So we'd have to look into that.
And Brownhill College offers a program in Microsoft Office certification, which is a sort of an in-depth cert on the key programs in the Office suite. So
Well,
some people may be interested in that. It
Even
may
if we
be
had some of our
too
tech staff, perhaps,
But,
could certify, we could talk about that. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Audience, please? No? Any other board members, Chris?
I want to say, first of all, I was involved with a one-to-one program, and it took about 3 years for us to roll it out. We started small, and I really think that that's the way to go. I think what you're doing is great, giving it to the teachers first. We did something similar. We got it in February, didn't roll out to the school till September. And it gives the teachers time to really become familiar with it. They get excited about it. They find new things. They start planning lessons immediately. That's the first thing you're going to do. So I think it's really, I like the idea that we're starting out slowly. I think that there's a better chance, to be successful, find good stuff. And it's infectious. One teacher tells another teacher, and it just grows really quickly.
I hope so.
So I think it's a really good idea to start it out.
We just wanted to be thoughtful in our rollout as opposed to other districts are doing stuff, therefore you should too. Mahwah is unique and it's special all for the people that are within it. And to suggest that, moving forward with something that's out there is absolutely right for Mahwah and its students doesn't necessarily make it right. So that is the reason for why we're heading in this.
Just one more thing. So have you had time to think about what the measures are in terms of the pilot program? Is that something?
I'm smiling at you because that's such a Chuck question.
Yes.
The answer to that, Chuck, is no.
Okay.
No, and I'm being honest with you. It's not because it's not going to happen, and
Right.
we're gonna want to show you that,
Good.
but no, Chuck.
Okay, I was just asking.
How are you gonna measure the success? But we will.
Just as far as the rollout, so you're envisioning the teachers first and then grade levels? Do you have any idea of how
A
you
rollout
would,
as far as the future is
for
concerned?
one-to-one, devices?
No, we don't. Part of the reason is because we want to be able to gauge the successfulness of what it is we're doing. and then come up again with a thoughtful plan that makes sense.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know what teachers Brian is gonna put in place. Is it gonna be teams of teachers? Is it gonna be a couple of teachers on each grade level? I don't know. And based on that scenario, we'll find out the success there, and then I'm sure Brian will say, you know what, we can absolutely do this in this grade level based on what it is that's happening, or you may just want to do a class on each. I don't know, because you've got to start it somewhere. And in a lot of districts, not to compare, although I don't want to, they do start off on the middle school level, they do start off with the grade level, and then that moves up for two reasons. One, you're purchasing so much, so quickly, and because you want all the teachers to have the proper professional development before they get the tool.
Mhm.
You know, the expectations need to be reasonable for everyone moving forward. So no, we don't.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we won't, but we don't. Anyone else at all? Any other questions? No? Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Actually, voicemail, and if you want to use is, leave it like that, you're good. Well, why don't we do, you want to do personnel? Sure. Ed, is that okay if Ed finishes with personnel? Please.
Okay, you'll notice on the agenda are three announcements for retirement. Sharon Freese, Karen Keach, and Pat Manila. I'd like to start sharing some information on each of these three, who I also know personally, which is nice. Sharon Freese is a mathematics teacher at the high school. She's an award-winning AP statistics teacher and is also the Math League advisor. And in that role, she's supervised students in earning a series of awards over the years. And in her capacity in the department, she served as mentor to many of our new teachers who have entered the high school math department. Karen Keach has been our high school secretary and has worked in the main office. For those of you in the audience who know Karen, she's kind, friendly, and always makes everyone smile. She's also worked here in central office. Her building principal, John Pascal, has stated that Karen is very welcoming to all new staff members, and when I started, Karen was particularly very nice, and she will be missed. Pat Manila is the advisor for our robotics team, and for over 10 years she served as the advisor for the National Honor Society over at the high school. She's taught AP Physics AB and AP Physics C, and she spent a great deal of her own time going into calculus classes to prepare for these courses. And Kristen Charbona, her department supervisor, as well as John Pascal, building principal, has stated that Pat Manila is awesome and will do anything for her colleagues as well as her students. I also agree. I also wanted to communicate some updates related to Park, since we delivered some information in past meetings. We have some teachers here who I've met through proctoring. Hi, Ursula. And Carlos, who's been a huge help with our tech team. Park has been going swimmingly. The students seem comfortable using the technology with regards to the test. And logistically, things have been pretty masterful because of our administrators. So I'm happy to report that.
And just some numbers. I know that there have been lots of articles and things in the paper about park refusal letters. Please know that we have received 134 refusal letters in our district. The breakout of that is 37 refusal letters at the high school, 66 at Ramapo Ridge, 26 at JK, 3 at Lenape, 2 at George Washington, and none at Betsy Ross. So we are testing 2,050 students, and with 134 refusals, it is quite minimal, quite slight, which has been reported by us. And we are, and I have to agree, I've been at 2 or 3 of the schools when they opened up for the parks. If not for the administrators, the work of the staff, the teaching testing coordinators, the rollout of this, as far as how the teachers felt, and as far as how we believe the kids are feeling overall, would not have been as smooth. It is absolutely a team effort. Carlos and his team have been present at each of the buildings every day, often two of them. Every time there is an issue, there's communication on a cell phone, they're in the classroom, they're taking care of it. I don't think that we could have asked for more support from our technology department or our administrators or our teachers for the rollout of this, and central office, of course, so thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will have a finance budget presentation at the end of the meeting, so we'll hold that off till then. I have a short report. Dakota Griffin is a Mahwah High School student who we are very proud to announce that she has been designated a National Merit Scholarship finalist. She is the recipient of this honor, and she's been named.
She's been named a member of the top 15,000 students from the original group of 8,300 students who took the SAT. So go ahead.
Okay, got it. Finalists are determined on the basis of professional evaluation of their abilities, accomplishments, personal attributes, considered important for success in rigorous college studies. So we are very, very proud of her. This is a very prestigious honor, and it's really wonderful. Another student I'd like to mention, Mr. Pascal also announced that Emma Corliss is a 2015 Presidential Scholar. Students have the opportunity to become U.S. Presidential Scholars based on two paths of accomplishment. The majority of the scholars are selected on the basis of broad academic achievement. Each year, over 3,900 candidates are identified based on having scored exceptionally well on the SAT or the ACT. So we are also very, very proud of her as well. It's a great accomplishment.
Agreed.
All right.
And is there any for Greenwich?
Oh,
Yeah. Any board committee reports? John?
We had a finance facilities meeting just before the board meeting, and Ed's going to go over the preliminary budget and discuss that. The other piece of the meeting had to do with courtesy busing and the potential of opening up for additional students in the future. We're right in the middle of, we're right at the beginning stages of finding the information that we need to make an informed decision on how we can move forward with this, or if it's even possible to do that. So stay tuned. There'll be further reports coming within the next few meetings.
Thank you, John. Any other reports?
Policy committee for on 15I, we have first reading of a mandatory policy on nutrient standards for meals and other foods.
Okay. Anybody else?
Technology did meet, and you saw the presentation. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, board member,
Got two.
oh, so sorry.
No worries. So instruction met, you have a report in your distribution, two highlight, three really, Park, which we already discussed and seemed to obviously go very well. The second highlight is there'll be curriculum writing requirements to get the USAP history class into, I guess, compliance is the best way to say it, because the AP is changing the test. They're moving the test from 80 multiple choice down to 55. It becomes a test which the curriculum team described as more free response and more in line with everything that's happening from a curriculum perspective currently. So that will be in the budget. And that was really the big stuff. You can read the report, but that was the big stuff. The other committee that met negotiation had a session with MEA on last Thursday. I was not present at that one, but I got briefed by the team. And the essential briefing is good give and take. We're scheduled again. And so we'll just keep chipping away and seeing if we can make progress.
Great, thank you, John. Okay. Board member remarks.
Yeah, I just want to echo kind of what Dennis said about Park earlier from the parents' standpoint. My daughter in 4th grade, going through the process, it was fun to talk to her at night after the test about how it went, what's going on tomorrow, and it was cool because everything that, you know, what part are you doing tomorrow? Well, tomorrow we're doing our research simulation task. Well, what's that? And going through, and this is what we're going to be doing, and just absolutely knew what to expect next time, how it was gonna happen, what it was gonna look like. No more stress than any other test. I mean, just totally, I felt as a parent like she was well prepared for what was gonna happen, you know, each day, and just,
That's great.
hats off
It is
to,
great.
you know, the preparation for, you know, Carlos and his team,
Mhm.
the teachers and supervisors really, in my estimation, did a great job.
That's good to hear.
It was awesome.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Old business, minutes. Do I have a motion? John, and a second, Doug? All in favor? Or any
I'll do a roll
discussion?
call.
Yeah, okay.
All right, 14A, Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Benetti.
Abstain?
Mr. Salverini.
Yes.
Mrs. Curry.
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis.
Yes. Okay, 15, new business, we're gonna do A through Q. Do you have a motion, Doug? Thank you. And the second? Rick? Discussion? Okay, roll call.
15A through Q, Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Dolan.
Yes, abstain on G.
Mr. Benetti.
Yes.
Mr. Salverini.
Yes.
Mrs. Curry.
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis.
Yes. We're going to move the 15R to the end of the meeting, and we'll do that right after we have Ed's presentation. So we're going to skip to 16A through Q, new business, personnel. A through Q, I have.
Go to all.
Go to R? Oh.
Page 14.
Yes, A through R, you're right, A through R. Do I have a motion? John, and second, Rick, thank you. Discussion? Suzanne?
B, C, and D, I just wanted to thank all of those teachers and the secretary for your service to the district, especially with all of the extracurricular work.
Thank you, yes, definitely. Yes, okay, roll call.
All right, 16A through R, Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Dolan.
Yes.
Mr. Benetti.
Yes.
Mr. Salverini. Mrs. Curry.
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis.
Yes. Okay, should I do the other questions, you want to do the?
No, I'm gonna do the other questions.
All right, we'll do the Ed's budget presentation first, and then we'll come to other questions.
Motion, second,
Motion.
and I'll do it.
Okay, do I have a motion for 15R, please? John, and a second? John Denise. John Dolan and John Denise. Thank you.
Tonight, we know that we didn't have a board meeting 2 weeks ago, so tonight we'll do a really broad stroke look at a preliminary budget. Most of you know that this exercise is preliminary. We send the information off to the Department of Education, they review things, they approve it, they come back with questions. On May 6th, we will have our final budget hearing, at which point this current budget can be adopted as the final budget, or changes can be made up, down, or any way that we would like. Okay, big picture stuff in terms of the revenues. The currently proposed budget has a tax levy that is increasing by 2%. So we're going up to $57,218,000. No surprise, nothing changes here. The local taxpayers are picking up about 93% of the operating budget of the district. This is kind of par for the course in northern Bergen County. State aid remains flat, which may not sound like great news, but from my point of view, since I thought it was going to go down, it actually is not bad news. So we're still getting our $2.3 million from the state. The other revenues, which are relatively small,
we are increasing the budget for those revenues. So fund balance is money that is left over in the account. We're increasing the use of that by $360,000 to support the budget. And then our other revenues, rent, interest, extraordinary aid is scaring us a little bit because normally by now we would have completed the application or been pretty done with it, and there is no application yet to even start. So we're starting to get nervous, but no one has indicated that extraordinary aid, which is for special ed purposes, is going away. But you can see that that miscellaneous money is going up by $162,000. So again, we're staying within the 2% cap on the tax revenue. Pointed out, the town seems to have stabilized in terms of appeals. So it's actually increased in value from last year to this year. And so if this proposed budget was adopted, you're looking at an increase of about $10 a year per 100,000 of assessed valuation. I normally put aside, I just stuck with the 100,000 and the $500,000. We are told that the average value is about 470,000. I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, let me make sure. The board receives usually, and some members of the public have seen, it's a rather lengthy spreadsheet that looks at 5 years' worth of enrollment history for the district, and that projects normally 5 years of enrollment for the future. I'm going to kind of go slow. I know some of the numbers that are smaller are a little hard to read, but this is a condensed version of that spreadsheet. And I think it's important for both the board and the public to be aware of, where Mahwah is heading. For those of us who have been here and, have spent a long time in the district, we're seeing kind of a change from say 20 years ago when we were growing. So with the enrollment sheet here, the way this works is, back in 2010-11, 5 years earlier, there were 243 births that are recorded for Mahwah residents. So in 2010-11, about 70% of those children ended up in our half-day kindergarten. Now, I know that number is small down there, but then, when we had a half-day kindergarten, typically first grade would increase by somewhere between 15 and 20% from the kindergarten, which made sense because people were bringing their kids in. And I was doing this, as we were doing this before, I'll try to avoid that again. So you see that in 2010-11, we have 171 kindergarten children. The following year, we have 202 first graders, all right? And then, of course, this tracks through the system. So if we go back to this column, which is the births 5 years ago, if we broke out one of these sheets from 10 years ago, the births would have been in the 300s. We see what happens, I'm kind of hoping, we see kind of like we're stabilizing in that just south of 200 mark. So we're kind of hoping that in terms of projections, that this is where it's going to go. The state of New Jersey is a little bit slow in releasing these things, so the latest numbers go back to 2011, which would affect 15-16. The township has numbers also, so kind of put them together to kind of go for the future. But again, it's kind of clear that the births are dropping. So this year here is the year we're in, 14-15. So 5 years earlier, we had 193 births. We have 173 children in our full-day kindergarten program now. So that's the only thing we have to work on now on full-day kindergarten is the assumption is that however many births we had, about 90% of them will end up in the school. I'm sure a certain number move out of the district, move out of the town. There could be a small number where parents have particular feelings or a particular liking for a particular school, and they use that. But we have to kind of use that 90% number as our kind of starting point. So in the year we're in, we have 193 births 5 years earlier. We have 173 in kindergarten. We have 225 in first grade. You can read across there, pre-K through 5, 1333, 754 in the middle school, 971 in the high school. So we're putting together next year, trying to look at it. We're also trying to look at 2, 3, 4 years away. So 5 years before 15, 16, 198 births. We're assuming that's going to translate into about 178 students in kindergarten. We might be off by a few, but there's no reason to think we're going to be off by more than a handful. One of the big changes, which we'll have to put on the spreadsheet, there's no longer going to be this big jump from 171 to 202, from 187 to 207. So the projection for the kindergarten class going into first grade is, it might increase by 7. Now it could go up by 10, obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but there is no reason to think that with 173 kindergarten students, we're going to end up with 200 or 210 first graders. There's just no reason to think that's happening. We have done kindergarten registration for next year. We also have people coming in to register for first grade and other grades. As of now, these numbers seem good for our projections. So what we see happening, though, is that all of the schools over the next few years are going to be starting to shrink in terms of population. So this affects, of course, our planning in terms of program, in terms of the staffing that goes on in various buildings. So with the 2% cap that's in place, and with the reduction in population, currently, let me state, in terms of central office and the principals and the supervisors have spent a lot of time looking at this, and I'll back into some other areas in a minute. Currently, we have 3 sections of kindergarten at Betsy Ross this year. We're looking at possibly 2 next year. Lenape Meadows, we're looking at the reduction of 1 pre-K section. Now, how that divvies up in between our collaborative and pre-K, regular pre-K, that has to be determined still. But the numbers of 3 and 4-year-olds are what's driving this decision. Lenape right now has 6 second grades, we go down to 5. If you were here last year, Joyce Kilmer's 4th grade lost one section because of the number of students. So now, of course, that 5th grade is losing 1 section. The incoming 4th grade will not require adding a teacher. So we'll have 10 4th grades and 10 5th grades next year if this is the budget we've got. Last year, the Ramapo Ridge incoming 6th grade went down by 2 teachers. As they're moving into 7th grade, we're losing 2 more teachers because, again, that population is dictating we can meet the need. So right now, in the current budget, we have a reduction of 6 positions in the budget. What we'll be looking at over the next 7 weeks, again, you've heard this before. We spend a lot of time, child study team, Lisa, and going over the needs for special ed. After spending a lot of time at the high school, we all walked out with the same agreement that there has to be the addition of 1 special ed teacher at the high school. That is not currently in the budget. But the class and the lists that were shown, there was no doubt when we were done that this was something we're going to have to figure out how we're going to add that position. In the process, we are really reviewing all of special education and all remedial services that are provided in the district. The problem here becomes that we have 3 models that we use. So you have self-contained, which is the smallest number of our students, so that you might have a class of 4 to 8 that spends the vast majority of their day together, and they're educated in that class. But that makes up a very small number of our special ed population. The vast majority are either in class support, where 2 teachers work together, a regular ed and a special ed, or a small group pull-out, which could be 6 to 12 kids working together, again, with 1 or 2 adults. So the problem becomes, it's not as easy as looking at a 2nd grade class and saying, let's see, if we have 100 students, 5 teachers should be a fairly comfortable number. This takes a lot more work on the part of the child study team and the special ed department to come up with what is really going to work, so we're not giving up education, just letting the numbers drive it. conversation we've had a lot in our building, out-of-district tuitions, and this is something where, starting in the late fall, child study team, Lisa, myself, we sit down, we go over every student. We do it again right before Christmas, we do it again after Christmas. In the past, we've usually come out with a few $100,000 left in these accounts. This year, as I've pointed out to the board, to the finance committee, our out-of-district tuitions for the year we're in are approximately $150,000 over budget. I would anticipate that that'll go up based on what the team is telling me. So we're really looking at this carefully. We currently have a budget, when we go over this in greater depth at a later meeting, that the out-of-district tuition money is increasing by about 17%. We do not see that number going down in the final budget, in terms of our recommendation. Last but not least, the nationwide issue of concerns with health insurance premiums. Right now, we are budgeting 15% based on every consultant we can talk to who knows the New Jersey School Employees Health Benefit Program. Hopefully it'll come in less, but we have to be prepared for it to come in at that neck of the woods. So tonight I'm asking that we adopt the preliminary budget so we can get that rolling. At the April 1st meeting, and we've done this for a while, we'll spend the bulk of that on personnel and everything that's related to personnel. We'll go into greater depth in terms of what we support in terms of program at all the schools. The 22nd, we'll go over the non-personnel line items. That'll include maintenance, utilities, the out-of-district tuitions, everything that drives the budget in terms of some real money, health benefits, of course, again. And then last but not least, on the 6th, we'll do a summary of the whole thing, review everything that's in there, and then the board will adopt a final budget for submission to the state. Questions?
Thank you, Ed.
If I may.
Okay.
Just make
yeah,
one
sure.
comment. I want to thank Ed and certainly our central office staff for putting together, again, what I see as being a very thoughtful budget presentation. But I think that it's really important to note, when we talk about reductions in sections, we often equate those reductions in sections to specific people who are part of those sections. So you may see a reduction of 7th grade sections and say, okay, I know the 7th grade teachers that are there, and that means that so-and-so. And what I want to say is, no, it doesn't. And like the technology plan and not having all of the answers, staff and personnel work the same kind of way. You know, we have certificated staff who have the ability to teach a number of different things in a number of different grade levels. So you can't automatically assume that the person who is responsible for that class is the person that may be reduced. We're still looking at that, and that needs to be a thoughtful consideration as well, whether the person is non-tenured or tenured, how long they've been here. All of those things we need to look at. The word possible is possible, and yes, it's out there and it's being considered, and it is a possibility in moving forward to make sure we get our budget where we need to be. But it's important that everyone knows and doesn't go home thinking that if it's a section that you specifically know that a teacher is responsible for at this point in time, it doesn't necessarily mean that that position is automatically eliminated, or rather, that person is automatically not renewed or not hired again. So I just wanted to make that very clear to everyone moving forward, that this presentation this evening preliminarily was about program and about a fiscally responsible budget. It wasn't about personnel. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Okay. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
15R, Mr. Denise?
Yes.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Ebenetti?
Yes.
Mr. Salverini?
Yes.
Mrs. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes.
Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis?
Yes. Public questions or comment. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes.
Deshaun, Evelyn Slaughter, 42
Evelyn
Dundas
Slaughter.
Place. How are you today?
Very pleasant.
I just have a question which a couple of people have brought up in conversation. If you have someone in the preschool program, in the special ed preschool program, and their birthday is in September, and there is a possibility that they may not be ready for kindergarten, even though their birthday cutoff date matches the cutoff date, are they automatically required to go into kindergarten once they're in the system? Or can they be held back because of a maturity or another issue?
I'm gonna turn you around and have you talk to Ms. Rizzo, who is the best person.
Preschool disability eligibility is based on the category of a child with a preschool disability. Once they turn the age of 5, we're compelled to have a different eligibility category. That category is then going to not permit them to remain in a preschool placement, and they would move forward with that category to the grade appropriate to their age. So retention in special ed, particularly in the preschool area, is not an option based on the category in which they are now enrolled in the program. So the DOE does not recognize children with grade level classification categories enrolled in preschool programs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Much better answer. Was that one? I believe you said 2.
No, there's just one today.
Good to go? Wonderful. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn. Doug? John? All in favor? Aye. Done.